Good morning and welcome to sunny Berlin. You might be able to see nothing in the background. If I was slightly further back there you'd be able to see the TV transmitter, but I've obviously just gone around the corner and you can't see it anymore. It's about 7 in the morning, although for me it's about 6 because I'm still in British summertime, and I'm just walking along to get some travel tickets before the management gets up for breakfast, because we're planning to go around a few things today. This giant sucker is Berlin Tempelhoff. It was an airport up to about 20 years ago, built in the 30s by a bunch of bad guys, built to look impressive, and it does. This side was sensible because this is where you had to go all the ingoing and outgoing traffic, and it was separated. The other side is monumental and still impresses 80 years later, and it's fucking huge. It's about 1.6 kilometres, so like a mile round there. I knew it was big. I wasn't really quite ready for how big it is. The field's also pretty big too. I didn't bring a drone. If I brought a drone I could have flown a drone here. There's guys over there flying kites. Oh, there's a plane over there. I might go over and have a look at the plane. Or maybe not, because the management's probably thinking, what's he up to now? But anyway, Berlin Tempelhoff, heck of an impressive. Yeah. So over there, there's the control tower, which we should have been allowed to go up. But it was shut for some reason. They didn't say why it was shut. They just said it was shut. And the museum shop didn't bother telling us. I only found out because I looked up on the webpage and it said, we're shut just now. That sign would have been nice. The management reckons I now look like a member of the village people. I can live with that. I actually saw the village people. So this is Albert Speer's heavy concrete thing. I was here before, but I was here in the middle of the night and it was shut. We're now here in the afternoon and it's open and you can get into it, but you have to wear the hat. It's called a Schwerbelastungskoerper or something like that. And it's a great big concrete chunk. So let's go and have a wee look at the inside of it. Why did Albert Speer build this? Well, he built this because Hitler wanted to replace Berlin with a much more epic city called Germania. But Berlin's built in a swamp, and Speer thought, it's not going to work. So he built this huge big concrete heavy thing called the Schwerbelastungskoerper to show that it wasn't going to work. It's very, very big, it's very, very heavy, it's very, very concrete, and sure enough, a year or so later it sank down into the ground a wee bit. Not that much, not a whole lot, it's still here, but enough to show that Speer was right, and you couldn't build huge triumphal arches in Berlin. It just geologically wasn't going to work. And that's why this was built. The reason why it's still here is because there's houses right around it. It's just in the middle of a residential suburb, and it's really big and really heavy, and they decided they couldn't get rid of it. Now, as well as the deep joy of being inside the heavy concrete thing, there's a viewing platform, and you can go up the viewing platform. So let's have a bash at that. Wow. So this is a wee reconstruction of what Hitler wanted Speer to do. The Brandenburg Gate would be here, and then along there was supposed to be a big triumphal arch. Heights are usually not my thing, but I had to go up on the viewing platform to see the heavily squishing body thing, concrete lump, and this is what it looks like from the top. A big concrete cylinder. It's also got a drainage channel on the top, which obviously I'd never seen before, so I didn't know that about it. And you get a decent view from here. You can see the TV tower over there, and the big concrete lumpy thing. Management's not best pleased that I made her walk for about half an hour to go and see a big concrete lumpy thing, but there it is. Had to come see the big concrete lumpy thing. You'd feel robbed if you didn't go and see the big concrete lumpy thing. It's a slightly chilly morning in Berlin this morning. Bit grey up there, but weather wire says it's going to burn off. So one of the things you have to do when you're going places and talking about them is you have to do this walkie-talkie thing. And there's a couple of options. This is a DJI Pocket 3, which is sublime. Everybody loves. Keep my angles forward. It's a gimbal mounted camera, mechanical mounted, so it doesn't pretty much matter what I do and I'm moving the camera over here. The image will stay steady because the camera just goes around and follows me. And it's got a few different ways to follow me. At the minute it's doing the artsy version, where it's going to keep me locked on the intersection of thirds. So your composition looks a bit better. It's got an f2 lens, and it's actually a lens that can focus, so you can throw the background out of focus and it's going to look nice. And also, if you want to show what I'm looking at, you press this button 3 times and it flips around and it shows you where I'm going. There's a Lidl there, I'm not going to Lidl there, I'm going to Karl Marx Alley to look at some Soviet era architecture. It's not tough and it's not waterproof, so you can't take this one in swimming. It's also a bit, the lens is a longer focus than most of these other action camera things. You can get around that a wee bit with a wide angle lens that goes on with a magnet. And it gives it a slightly wider view, but some people still feel it's a wee bit tight. And doesn't take in a lot of background. I don't like it because of that. I'm okay with that, I think it's great. And the gimbal's hard to beat. So anyway, Pocket 3, love it to bits. Let's swap over to something else. The other option is things like the GoPro. Actually this isn't a GoPro, it's a DJI Action 5. And it's a lot tougher. You can take this, I've taken this in swimming in the sea, I've dropped it, it's fine. It's got a slower lens, it's an f2.8, and it's a wider focal length. And it's a bit simpler to use. It doesn't actually focus, it's a fixed focus lens, so you can't throw your background out of focus. You can't do it optically, you can do it in post later if you want. It's a bit of a faff, and it doesn't quite look as nice. But it's a lot simpler. You just push one button, it's deployed, you don't have to wait for the gimbal to wake up. You can just push, you can set it so you push one button and it's working within 2 seconds. It's also got much better battery life. The battery runs for 5 hours, and then when it does run out, you can just swap in a second battery, whereas the Pocket 3 battery is built in. It charges fairly fast, but it's still another thing to worry about. If you want to show the other direction of this one, then you just turn it around. It's got screens on both sides, so at the minute I'm looking at the wee screen on the front. A lot of the time I tell that to turn off because you don't always like other people know what you're doing. But there we go. And it's wider lens, so it's taking in more of the background, which some people feel is a bit less claustrophobic. You can see where they are, gives a bit more idea of what's going on. So anyway, there you go. Pocket 3, mechanical gimbal, hard to beat for that. Bit wee tight focus and can be, I've not broken mine, but some people claim they're quite fragile. They're definitely not waterproof. Action 5, waterproof, tough, but no gimbal. It can do a follow mode thing, but it's not as good. You can't. It's not like the Pocket 3. You can set it to be in the intersection of thirds. I'm having to keep a wee eye on this to make sure I'm in the right place in the frame. There is a follow mode, but all it does is it makes sure you stay in frame. It doesn't say where you stay in frame, and it does that by cropping the sensor and moving the frame around. Anyway, off to Karl Marx Alley, and I want to check out a building there. So this is what I came down here to see. It's Soviet era cinema to show all that was best in Soviet cinema. And it's survived, and apparently the interior survived as well, but it's not open just now. Now, obviously people are going to be thinking, if you don't like having this camera swivel round and you like putting a cut, that means you have to stop talking because you'll be talking over the cut. No, not really. You can get around that. You can talk over the cut. For example, I'm just going to do that just now. No, I'm not. I'm just going to do it just now. So I'm going to flip the camera around, but I'll be able to keep talking. And you're thinking, how did he do that? How do you manage to keep talking to the camera while flipping the camera around? Well, all you need to do is record a wee bit more forward footage than you actually need. And then you can paste that forward footage over the cut, and the cut will disappear. I mean, it'll still be there, but nobody needs to see it. And it's so easy, but lots of YouTubers don't do it. They do this horrible swivelly camera thing, which drives me nuts. At least you don't get so many people looking off to the side these days. When everybody was using cameras with flip out screens on the side, you see them looking over there. These days they're using more sort of action cameras and pocket threes and other things like that, where the screen is in the middle, very close to the lens, and it's not quite as bad. Of course, we can still do it, but we try not to. Anyway, back to the hotel, get the management, and go to some more traditional tourist things. This is Bernauer Straße, where there were buildings right on the edge of the eastern side of the wall. So people would drip out and get into the west. Actually, the boundary was in the middle of the road, I think. This line of poles is the western side of the wall, the outer wall. This is the dead zone, and over there there's a short section of the inner wall, but not very much. Most of it's just a reconstruction of it, but it was an interesting spot because people used it to escape. There's also the path of two tunnels over there. There's one from 62 and one from 71. To my left and my right are the path of two 1964 tunnels. The one to my right, there, is 57 tunnel. And that's where the East German Guard was shot. Now, at the time, the East German authorities claimed that it had been gunned down by nasty, nasty people from the West. When the wall came down, it turned out that he'd been shot by both sides. Not good for the guy, but for a while he was a hero of the DDR. I'm standing in what would have been the kitchen for 10A Bernauer Straße, and you can see there's concrete blocks there where they bricked up the windows. This was excavated about 20 years ago, and they found that the bits of the basement are still here. This represents the outside of the building of 10A Bernauer Straße, and those rectangles there are the outside of the windows, which you can see from the other side. You can see the inside bits that are bricked up. So these are along the path, these are incident markers, and this one's about a guy that escaped in 17th of October 61. Rudolph somebody. 22nd September 61, Family F escaped. So this is the remains of the foundations of the Reconciliation Church, which stood here until 1985. Yep, when the tower was blown up. And it doesn't say, but I'm guessing that's where these bells came from too. There's a big cage here, it's hard to see through it from this angle. There's a big cage here full of church bells. And this is the cross on the top of the church. It's a bit bent. That happens if you blow it up. And here we've got a big section of wall. Outer wall, I think. It's still got the curvy bit on the top. There is a museum over there, but it's 1938 hours, so it's shut. So this area would have been a cemetery, and when they were building the wall, they exhumed some of the bodies and moved them, but they're not sure they got them all. So this cross behind me is to commemorate people who might still be here. This is a different kind of wall. This is a wall with pictures of people who didn't make it. Tried to get across, didn't make it, so... Oh, James, what age was that one? 10. There you go. 74, 77, 89. Yeah. Sometimes I think the 89 ones are the worst, because if they'd waited a few months, it would have been fine. But who knew? Never expected it to come down. Well, that was well worth the trip. I thought there was just poles showing where the outer wall used to be, but there's bits of outer wall, bits of inner wall, representations of things that used to be here, some bits of things that are still here, like there's bits of cemetery and foundations for buildings. So yeah, well worth the trip. A wee bit of accidentally preserved history here. Stations near the wall, or stations for trains that went under the wall, were bricked up and became ghost stations for a period of the wall. So because of that, they didn't get updated, and this one looks like this. And I think the outside of the station looks great as well. But I can see my tram over there, so I'm going to have to boost and catch the tram. I'm walking up a biggish hill near the hotel, near what used to be kind of a Lenin alley, but they renamed it because, well, Lenin wasn't a good guy. Better than Stalin. Anyway, this is Straße, Big Bunker Hill. And it's called Big Bunker Hill because it's a fake hill. The guy in the hotel didn't seem to be au fait with that. So what happened was there was a gun emplacement here, anti-aircraft ACAT gun, and when the Russians came in under Zhukov, they blew it up. But being huge, it didn't exactly go away. It fell down about one story and then stopped and cracked a bit. So after the war was over, all the rubble from Friedrichshain got piled up here. So what I'm walking on just now is rubble from old buildings that were rubbled after the war. But no, it's a nice hill with trees and stuff on it. This is the result of the Russians blowing it up. So they basically filled the ground floor with dynamite, blew it up, and it crunched down a wee bit and cracked. But it's still there, it was still huge. Not as big as the other one I've been up, but fairly huge. So this is the top of the Großen Bunkerberg. This is where the guns would have been, and then there's another spotter tower that would be a bit lower down, but there's no hardware left. There are stones around there that tell you what you can see, but mostly there's trees. The trees do get in the way a wee bit. So this claims that that's the Tiergarten over there. Well, it might be, but I can't see it from here. There's a lot of trees. And again, we've got a slightly dubious claim that the Brandenburg Gate is there. Okay, I'm okay with this one. This one's the Alexanderplatz Fernsehen Tower, TV tower, and yeah, you can see that through the trees there. You get a better view of it there. That one's not such a big claim. That's the Platz of the United Nations. It was called something like Leninplatz until the wall came down, but like the statue of Lenin, it was subject to re-education. The statue of Lenin got buried in the woods, and then about 10 years ago they dug it up, and I think it's in a museum near Spandau. A museum of questionable statues.
And here we've got fairy tale fountains. You want to see the fairy tale fountain? I think this one's Little Red Riding Hood, because she's taking a basket of stuff to her grandmother and there's a big wolf beside her. I have no idea what the tortoises are for. This one's slightly disturbing up here because the lady appears to have a small Rolf Harris sitting on her knee. Could be Snow White and the Dwarfs. Although there's only 4. Boy with a bear. Boy sitting on a duck.